Today we're going to be looking at Lunar Tides in the color Solar Flare. So if you are new to my channel, these are human hair swatches, but they are not virgin hair swatches. So they've been chemically treated, bleached, or colored at some point in their existence. Also, the numbers you see on top are not synonymous with hair levels. I do different video clips and pictures and such near the end of the video, so the numbers just help us keep track of each swatch. 1 is green. I was curious to see how the green would interact with this orangey color. 2 is a gray. 3 is a natural red. 4 is a softer black. And then 4 to 11 is a range that goes to platinum blonde. And then 12 is like a toned version of number 11. What I like to do is I will take the color directly from the container and I will apply it to the top of each swatch. Then some people do like to dilute their dyes, so I'll do a diluted version at the bottom of each swatch. Please keep in mind everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take color differently. Plus different screens and monitors and such can make colors look different, so please just use my video as a reference for how this could possibly turn out for you. For the diluted section, we're going to do a 2-to-1 ratio. So that's going to be 1 part of the Solar Flare to 2 parts diluter. If you're unsure what diluter is, I always just give the quick answer. It's basically something that lightens the color of a semi-permanent dye. So usually each brand will sell their own version of a diluter that will have the same consistency as the dye you're using. So you can always use that if it makes you feel more comfortable. But to keep consistency with all of my videos, I just use a plain white conditioner as my diluter. Alright, I'm going to let these sit for about 3 hours so they can have some time to really absorb the color. I will then rinse it out, and when they are dry, I will meet you back here and we can do some comparisons. So before we get too far into this, I do just want to say I have an affiliate code with Lunar Tides, so you can use code FLOXY to get 15% off of your order. And like I said, this is an affiliate code, so anytime you do use my code, I do make a small commission. So thank you very much if you do use my code. And I do genuinely want to say, thank you to anyone who uses my code, because I've noticed there are times when Lunar Tides has their own sale going on and some of you will still choose to use my code instead. And it makes me feel so soft and gushy inside. I can't see any confidential information like who is using my code, but I can still see when my code is used. So if that's you, thank you. And if you just use my code in general, thank you so much. That warms my heart. All right, so as for orange, this is going to be my most yellowy, undertoned, lightest orange that I have. Now this one's interesting. I feel like I've said this before, but I've noticed that colors that are usually on the warmer end of the spectrum tend to take to the hair better than cool tones do, especially blue. And so even though this isn't a super dark orange, I pretty much have noticed a difference on every single swatch. Now the number 4 was a soft black. It's not a jet black, so this is someone with brownish black or just not super jet black hair. So I do just want to warn that my swatches again are not virgin hair, which means they are going to take color better than if you had virgin hair. Virgin hair tends to not absorb and hold on to semi-permanent colors as well as previously treated hair does. So if you naturally have a like softer black or really dark brown, I don't really know how this will turn out on you. I don't think I would put this in the category as being for dark hair, even though I do see a difference. So I would definitely do a strand test if I was you, because even if it does take to the hair, the next time you wash it, it could come right out. And I don't want anybody to waste their time or energy, but I also want to be transparent and say that I do actually see a difference on the darker swatches as well. So number 1 was originally green. I can't say that the orange took away the green, but it definitely kind of toned it down a bit. And it made it almost like a kind of 1970s greenish color, like almost on the mossy side, but I don't know. It's very interesting. So number 2 was originally my gray swatch, and usually that is my most cool toned swatch, but because this is an orange, I don't really think you can get a cool toned version. I'd say that it actually just looks a little bit darker and more muted compared to the rest of the swatches. I don't want to go as far to say that it looks natural, but compared to like the blonde, it has a slightly more natural look to it, but still not natural, just kind of in between a natural and like a bright. Number 3 was the natural red, and I would still say that still looks like a natural red, but the orange tones really kind of punched up the color and makes it look a little bit more bright and warm toned, almost like it was refreshed or something. Number 4, I see more of a difference on the top than I do on the bottom, which obviously makes sense. So it's going to be similar to like number 3 and number 5, where I just see a little bit more warmth coming through, but it still looks like a really, really dark color, in this case like a black. So there's a tiny chance if your hair is like a unnatural black, you might be able to change the undertone of your hair, but it would still look black, if that makes sense. But again, if you have jet black hair, especially if it's natural, it probably won't do anything. And let me also just say, I feel like the bottom half of number 4 is the only swatch that didn't really have much of a difference. Even the diluted section on the rest do seem to be at least a little bit different from before. So number 5, again, still looks like a brown. It just looks like a lot more of a warm undertone brown than it was before. And something else I've noticed about warm tones, like yellows and brighter oranges like this, is if you put it over darker hair, it can make your darker hair look like it's brighter, even though it's technically not, because it reflects light better than cool tones do. Even though 5 still looks like a darker brown, it just has a slight brighter quality to it than it did before. 6 and 7 are kind of teetering on the edge of almost looking kind of brown, but almost looking kind of orange at the same time. 7 probably looks a little bit more orange than 6 does, but they both still have that natural quality, kind of like number 3. It's not as red as number 3, but I think maybe if you put this over like a lighter brown hair, it could almost have like a natural red effect somewhat. Anyways, there's not a lot of red in this orange. And then as the swatches get lighter, it gets more and more orange, with number 11, the platinum blonde, being the brightest out of the bunch. I think the yellow tones in the platinum blonde really help to brighten up this color. And I feel like my platinum blonde wasn't that yellow, so if you have hair that naturally looks more yellow when you bleach it, this will probably look pretty bright on you as well. So like I was saying earlier, this is going to be probably one of my more lighter yellowy oranges. So I don't have a lot to compare it to in terms of similarities. We'll start with my most similar color though, and that's going to be Punky color in the color Flame. This is going to be comparable to number 12. This is comparable to number 11, comparable to number 10, and comparable to number 9. So first thing I want to say is that I did this a really long time ago, so not only are my numbering systems a little bit different now, but I also used to do 2 separate diluted sections. So this is going to be one section and this is another, whereas now I just do the direct and one diluted section. So if you're wondering why my swatches look the way they do, that is why. So the very top here is going to be the direct dye, and the direct dye on its own is a bit darker and just a touch more red in comparison. I think the diluted section doesn't look as far off from the Lunar Tides, but for most people you would probably have to dilute the Flame to get it to look like the Lunar Tides, if that is the look you're going for. I also feel like the Flame isn't quite as bright on the Platinum Blonde swatch. It's a little bit hard to say, because looking at the direct dye, it does look pretty vibrant, but as it gets diluted, it has a slight softness that I don't really see in the Lunar Tides, but that could also just be because I diluted it. So if you're looking for a slightly lighter orange that leans on the yellow side, the Lunar Tides Solar Flare would definitely be it for you. So my next comparison is actually going to be Lunar Tides as well, and that's going to be in the color Siam orange. So this is comparable to number 12, 11, 10, and number 9. So hopefully you can see what I mean when I say that the rest of my oranges lean pretty red. Now this comparison was probably my hardest because I feel like my Siam orange leans a little bit more yellow. You can see that in the diluted section. But because it's so dark, it has a very red look to it on the direct dye portion. The other comparison I was considering was Manic Panic in the color Psychedelic Sunset, and that is this one. You can see it's not as dark as the Siam orange, but when you dilute it, it still kind of has a slightly red quality. To me, I see a little bit more yellow. Hopefully the camera can pick up what I'm seeing, but when the Siam orange is diluted, there's a slightly bit more yellow versus the Psychedelic Sunset has a touch more red I can see in there. But to get a slightly more yellowy look for the Siam orange, you would have to dilute it. And it's kind of funny because even next to the two oranges, the Solar Flare almost has like a marigold look to it instead, but I feel like when it's by itself it still looks quite orange. So if you want me to compare this to anything else, I can always just make a separate post on my Patreon. Just let me know. As for my other oranges, I want to say that the Arctic Fox oranges are kind of similar to the Manic Panic, where they're just a touch more red. I think Sunset Orange is kind of close to the Psychedelic Sunset, and then Porange is a little bit lighter, but it's also neon. And then after that, I want to say that the Good Day Young and Riot would be the next in line. That one has a pretty kind of reddish quality until it fades, similar to how these ones look. So yeah, if you want to see Solar Flare compared to anything else, feel free to let me know. But now I'd like to get into the before and after clips. Those, as well as anything you see past this point in the video, will all be done in natural lighting. I hope my video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just remember, I only do brands that do not test on animals. Thank you so very much to anyone who uses my code. Thank you very much to my patrons, and thank you very much for watching. And I hope to see you in my next video.